So, I just wanted to redo the third part of the Black Ops 3 custom zombie mapping tutorial series with creating a room and lighting, because I got a few suggestions and there were a few things that I did that weren't entirely the best way to do some of the lighting and creating a room. So, I just wanted to redo that, and the video was quite a bit long, so hopefully this one's going to be a bit shorter. At this point of this series, we still haven't made the map, so let's cover the launcher a little bit. So the launcher can look familiar to you if you've worked with the mod tools before in COD 4 or World at War. It's very similar with a few very notable improvements, one of which being this publish button. We can publish straight to the Steam Workshop right from the launcher, so that's pretty neat, but we're not going to be bothering with that yet. That's going to be one of the last things we do. There's also an export to bin tool. I'm not really sure what that's for. Maybe we'll come across that later. But the most notable change, I think, is the map names are a lot cleaner, right? Because in COD 5 we had the Nazi _ zombie _ prefix, and it got really long and annoying. This one is just ZM _. So to create a new map, we can just hit this little new map icon, and we type ZM _ and then our map name. So I'm going to put YT. Okay. Oh, hold on. ZM YT. Oh, and you got to change your template to ZM mod level. My bad. There we go. And it'll give this little pop-up, files created. So if we just go ahead and select our map here and then open Radiant through the shortcut here, it will actually load our map right in Radiant straight away, which is pretty nice. So on your first load, it might take a little bit to open up. Okay, so as you can see, we have a default map set up for us, and it's pretty nice because it gives us access to a lot of things to play with. I recommend that you go through and kind of look at some of the stuff that's here. Like you can see they have a wall weapon, they have the mystery box, a wall barrier. They have perk machines here, but I haven't downloaded the additional assets on my new computer, so that's why those aren't there. The pack-a-punch machine, there's a lot you can play with here. We're actually going to take a few things out of this map and keep them, and everything else we're going to delete. So I'm not going to go through everything in this video for sake of brevity, but you can go ahead and do that on your end. But I will cover a few important things you might need to know for navigating. So for using the camera, you can just right-click and drag to pan around the map. You can also use the D and C keys to move up and down, and the A and Z keys to change your camera angle. And the other important thing is your layout may not look exactly like this when you open up Radiant for the first time. I organized it like this. If you want to go ahead and edit it just to show you kind of how this works, because I was quite annoyed when I was trying to figure out how to work with this. So you can just use View, Layout, and use XY to bring up this grid. And there's a few other ones like this toggle window that you can use to bring up the textures pane. And that brings it, oh, hold on, I had it open already, so I'll do it again. And it'll open it up, and you can see these windows are tabs. So you can actually merge these into one panel so that you can quickly access them easily. So this is another nice change. You can click and drag on a tab to move it around. Don't make the mistake I did. If you go ahead and use it here, see how only the top half is highlighted and the bottom half isn't, that won't merge the tab into the same panel. You have to make sure it encompasses the entire panel to merge it. And you can use these little bars to adjust your sizes and stuff like that. So this is the layout that I'm going with. So there's a few things of note here that we want to keep. So this, you may have guessed already, is the info player start. This is going to be very important. We're going to keep this. This is the spawn point, respawn point script struct, and that holds some important KVPs, so we're going to go ahead and keep that as well. And these script structs are the actual spawn points. I'm not incredibly sure why there's 8. My initial theory was that maybe it was for grief mode that was introduced in Black Ops 2, but I'm not incredibly sure, but I'm going to keep them nonetheless. The only other two things that are of pretty good interest that we're going to keep here is these two script structs that are connected with a line, and these are actually, this defines where the camera is going when the game ends. So if you've played a game of zombies, you know when the game ends, when everyone dies, the camera kind of follows a track path when it's displaying the scoreboard, and that is what this is. So we'll keep that because that's going to be one less thing we're going to need to worry about later. So we're going to keep this, and we're going to keep the player respawn points. And we're going to keep the info player start. So then if we hit the I key, it's going to select the inverse of everything we selected, and we can just hit backspace. So now we only have the things that we wanted to keep. So now that we have this, if we went and had played our game right now and launched the map, your player that spawned in would instantly die. And that's because we haven't set up a room. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So to create a room, we just need to create a brush. So you can just click and drag on the grid view to create a brush like this. Okay, it's kind of a boring room, but I have to start somewhere. New brushes will automatically start with this kind of weird texture. It'll change depending on your camera, like where it is. Don't be alarmed, that's normal. So we're going to go ahead and select this and hit Control Tab to change your view in the grid view, and we're just going to drag this down so that it meets this gray line, and that's going to be our floor. So you want it to be underneath the info player start, and I'm going to make it a little bit higher than where the camera is. So this is our basic room. So we're going to want to hollow this out, because if we go inside of it, we can't really see anything. We're kind of inside of a block right now, and that's not what we want. We're going to go to textures, and we're going to set it to all tools, and we're going to use the chalk texture. So this is known as a dev texture, and it's not visible in game. And the reason we're doing this is when the player is inside of the room, and if they're not going outside, then there's no reason to texture these walls. We can go ahead and save resources for the game here. So by selecting the chalk texture first and then hollowing it out, we can texture only the things that we need to texture. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and hollow it again, CSG hollow. Okay, so now we have our walls and our ceiling and roof back. So if you hit Control Shift and then click on a face of a brush, it will only select that one face, and I'll show you why in a second. So if you go ahead and change your usage to floor, you can even change your surface type here. You can pick a floor that you want to use. I'm just going to go with something kind of quick, but this is where you can kind of get creative with it and put in whatever you want to put in there. I'm going to put in some stone because, looks nice enough. And then if we go ahead and shift click our walls, we can also apply an interior wall texture. So we change the usage to interior wall, and you can change change it to anything that appeals to you. We will go into custom textures later on in the series, by the way, just as a side point. So I'm just going to make it wood, kind of a interesting room, very simple. I'm sure you could do better. And I'm going to select the ceiling texture, and I'm just going to go with something simple like that. So yeah, the reason that we only wanted to select one face is if we go ahead and go underneath the floor, we don't need to texture this really, because the player's not going to see that unless you have a basement or something in your map, in which case you could texture that face. But as it stands in my case, we don't need to texture that. We can save some resources. So we now have a basic room. So the next thing we're going to do is just add a zone. So we're going to go more into zoning in a later video, but we're going to have to add a start zone for our map, or we're not going to be able to test it. So if we go ahead and go to the Entity Browser, and we just search for volume, volume like that, we'll see info volume. We're going to want to go ahead and drag that onto our map. Okay, so we can't draw a brush, by the way. So, okay, let's say we go ahead and draw a brush instead, and then apply the volume texture to it. I'm in ceiling usage. We could do this technically, but it won't work because we won't be able to add KBPs to it. It's just something I wanted to mention just in case you were curious. Okay, so we now have our zone, and it's an info volume. So we want it to match the size of our room because this is going to be the playable area. So if you remember from World at War, there was another volume that we had to use that marked the playable area. So that was where like the power-ups would drop, so like insta-kill and stuff like that. So if we actually define that a bit outside of our map, then power-ups will be able to spawn out of the map, which is definitely not something we want. The other thing that this also accomplishes now is it is basically a safe zone for the player. So if they are not in a zone that is marked as a playable area, they will instantly die. So if you didn't have this in your map and you went to test it, you would die as soon as you spawned in. And this is to prevent exploiting of glitches to get out of the map and stuff like that. So yeah. So we're going to go ahead and define our start zone. So where did I put it back to? So right here. So you can hit N to bring up the entity info, and we're going to edit the target name KVP to be start zone, start_zone, like that. And then we're going to go ahead and add our own KVP, and we're going to put the property or key to script noteworthy, and the value we're going to put to player volume, like that. Okay, so that script noteworthy actually makes it so that you don't die when you're in this zone, and the start zone marks it as the first zone that you're in. Now let's say we just left this volume like this, okay, and this part of the room was not encompassed in it. If the player moved around the room and they went over to this area, they would die because that's not marked as playable area. So you want to make sure that it encompasses your entire room like that. So that's all we're going to do in this tutorial. We've made a basic room. In the next tutorial, we're going to get into lighting the map, because lighting is pretty important right now. If we went ahead and played this, we wouldn't really be able to see anything because it'll be pretty dark. So yeah, we're going to do some basic lighting, and we're going to actually compile the map and test it, because testing is going to be very important throughout this series. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, please leave a like below, comment any questions or comments you guys may have on the video, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the 4th video.